Hi guys, and welcome to
The Results Show.
The Results Show indeed. Today we are excited.
Yep.
Because we are about to start something which is brand new, which has been designed for The Results Show. I say it's brand new. I mean, this is based on something which you have been doing for many, many years. In fact, you were one of the first people to pioneer this, weren't you, in terms of using NLP to present?
Yeah. So I did my trainer's training in 1993, which is all about how to use NLP as a trainer.
Yes.
But nothing was out there about how do you use NLP as a speaker or a presenter. So I started running this training. Well, here's what happened. I got a bunch of people that were coming out to do trainers training with me and Tad in California. And one of them phoned me up, Brad, and said, I've just been speaking to the other people who are coming out to do trainers training in August. And I went, right. And he said, we all have one thing in common. I said, what's that? He said, we're all shit ourselves.
That's honesty. That's what you like.
Could you do something before August trainers training to kind of like warm us up? And I did, this is a bit like our last podcast. I said, well, if I did, would you all book on it? And they went, yes. I said, in that case, we'll do something. So I looked at what were the things that people found the most challenging on trainers training. I thought, I can do that in 2 days to warm them up, so it's not the first time they've done it when they're out in California. But then I looked at it, I thought, if I had one extra day at the beginning, I could actually make this training available to everyone, whether they've done any NLP before or not. And hence, the new then training, Presenting Magically, much copied, was born. And then, as part of my Master Trainer program, for NLP Master Trainer, I had to make a contribution to the field of NLP.
Right.
So what I thought was, well, nobody's published a book on presenting using NLP, speaking with NLP. So what I did was I recorded one of the seminars, had it transcribed, and was then looking for a publisher. And Tad said, look, I'll co-author it with you. So you got, my name on there, because he was obviously significantly better known in the marketplace than I was. And that's where Presenting Magically, the book, came from, which I think was published in around about 2000, 1999, 2000, something like that. And I was trying to see if I got a copy, but I think I've sold them all. It's about 200 or so pages, which is really too big a book these days.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest of reads. So I came up with the idea of doing a kind of like revised version of the book, Presenting Magically Express.
Yes.
Obviously, Tad's no longer around to be my co-author. I've gone to my publishers and they're not interested because they don't publish books on NLP anymore. So I've got to find a new publisher. But that got me thinking about, so what is Presenting Magically Express? And two things. The first being what we're going to talk about today, which is your state.
Yes.
The way you're feeling. This is what I've noticed. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. The most important thing, more important than skill, is state.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in the right state, all your skills just go out the window immediately. And there are two things I think in athletics and sport, it's called the zone.
Yeah.
And I think athletes, sports people know that when they're in the zone, they perform better than when they're not.
Yeah.
And they'll go, sometimes I'm in the zone, sometimes I'm not.
It's almost like it's beyond their control. They just have to hope that, it's almost like, hope it's a nice day tomorrow. I don't know what the weather of my mind is going to be doing.
Yeah. In the performing arts, they call it the flow.
Yeah.
And I think all performers will say, when I'm in the flow, I perform better than when I'm not in the flow. Sometimes I'm in the flow, sometimes I'm not. Yeah. So I've got a couple of examples of this.
They often try to get into the flow with a bottle of vodka before they go on stage.
Brian Ferry,
Yeah.
apparently has to down a litre of vodka before he goes on stage to perform.
If I downed a litre of vodka, I'd be incoherent.
Well, maybe that's how he developed his style.
Brian Ferry, if you're watching, which is a remote possibility.
Sorry, Brian.
You're still alive, isn't he?
Yeah.
Good.
And we'll end this session with a very quick tool for being able to do that. To put yourself in the flow, to put yourself in the zone.
Yes.
I'll try and give you some real life examples of this. Because it's actually a technique that comes from a Hawaiian huna called Hakalau. And in ancient Hawaii, if you were a kahuna, as in, the witch doctor, the wizard, the magician
Yes.
kind of person, you would never tell anybody that you were a kahuna. It would be, if somebody said, I'm a kahuna, that's a surefire way of knowing that they're not. Because even if you were a kahuna and somebody confronted you with it, you deny it. So how did you know that somebody was a kahuna? When everybody else was losing their heads, the kahuna was the person who stayed calm, balanced, and centered. And that's because they lived in this highly revered state of Hakalau, which I've been teaching now since I first discovered it, 1993. Couple of examples of that.
What does Hakalau translate to, by the way? I've actually taught this technique to people. I've suddenly gone, what does that actually mean in Hawaiian?
Haka means to focus.
Yeah.
Lau means to spread out.
Okay, so it's basically wide angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So haka, focusing in, then spreading out. And this is the way that you use your vision. So you've got two ways of using your vision. Foveal vision, where you're focusing in on one thing. Peripheral vision, where you're aware of everything around you. And this works like a switch in the nervous system. You've got sympathetic nervous arousal, which is the stress response, which is foveal vision. And then you've got parasympathetic nervous arousal, which is a relaxation response, which is related to peripheral vision.
Yes.
And Hakalau. And literally it's black and white. You're either in one or the other. Yeah. So this is a very quick technique, which we'll share right at the end of this particular episode.
It's one of my favourite all-time techniques. I've taught it to people in 2 minutes.
Yep.
And it's
And it's, well, let me give you a couple of examples. Very good friend of mine, Frederick Carlson. If you've listened to any of my audios on c21nlp.com,
Yes.
Frederick composes and plays all of the lead-in, lead-out music.
Yes, we've used it quite a lot of times in terms of if you guys have seen like the Huna adverts or other bits and pieces, Frederick is normally in the background there.
Yeah, and Frederick he was the lead guitarist of an Icelandic band called Mezzo Forte in the 80s that had a big hit called Garden Party. And what made it even bigger was the fact the BBC chose Garden Party as their theme music for the cricket show.
Oh, okay.
So Mezzo Forte went off the Richter scale to the
like the lightning seeds when they kind of use it for FIFA and stuff like that.
To the point where at one point in time, Mezzo Forte were Iceland's biggest export, even bigger than fish.
Yeah, so John Lennon's saying we're bigger than God. They're saying, yeah, we're bigger than fish.
We're bigger than fish. And so Frederick, very, very accomplished guitarist. Mesa Forte split up. They're now back together and they're touring again. If you get a chance to see Mesa Forte, take the chance because they're brilliant. And Frederick's still the lead guitarist. The other lineup is different. But they split up, and then Frederick became a session guitarist, very, very accomplished session guitarist in London. But then a venue, it's called Jongleurs in Camden Lock.
It's not like a comedy club.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think they had a fire, so I don't know if they're still there. But anyway.
Anyone in London, let us know.
They contacted Frederick and asked him if he'd do a live performance, which he hadn't done for years at this point in time. And so Frederick phoned me up and said, would I like tickets? Well, it was a bit of a no-brainer as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And he got me front row and all that kind of stuff. So Frederick comes out on the stage and he was awful. And I'm going, oh no, what's going on? Where's the Frederick I know and love?
Where's the Frederick who's bigger than fish?
And then there's that uncomfortable thing where then I got the rest of the audience were going, this is awful.
Yes. But of course, not knowing him, they don't have your concern. It's just like, what is this noise?
Yeah, exactly. What have I paid for? And then suddenly, there was Frederick back, And I met up in the bar with him afterwards and for a quick drink. And I said, mate, I've got to say something. When you came out on the stage, you were worse than me on guitar, which is bad.
David's lying, as you probably know. He's better than me.
And then I said, something happened. He said, I know. He said, I was on the stage and I was looking at my hands and it's like there was somebody else's hands. They weren't mine. I said, but then what happened? He said, I remembered Hakalau. And I said, I was focusing on my hands. So then I put myself into Hakalau, peripheral vision, and then my hands were back.
Yes.
That's the flow state.
And as you say, it's digital. You're either in one or the other.
It is.
So, yeah.
It's completely binary. Then actually somebody that I met up with again, I haven't seen him for about 20 years, Andy Mounsey, who's going to come and be one of the guests on
That'll be fun.
On the results.
We'll let you guys know when that happens.
And one of Andy's claims to fame is that he did the arch to arc challenge, triathlon.
Yes.
And just to put that into perspective, that's running from Marble Arch to Dover, swimming from Dover to Calais, and then cycling from Calais to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris.
They're not doing that back to back, are they? What, all in one day?
Yeah. And he wanted. There was already a world record set, and he wanted to beat it. Unfortunately, he didn't beat the world record because when he got to Dover, he couldn't swim for 2 days because of the weather.
Oh.
And the original record was elapsed time. And so they counted the 2 days. So he was...
They used to stop the clock.
He was faster in the run, he was faster in the swim, and he was faster in the cycle, but he didn't get the world record.
Oh.
Hence the reason he's not in the Guinness Book of Records. But he contacted me, because one of my students, Charles Barnastoni, recommended he contacted me because he got a problem. And when I spoke to him, he said, I've got the run down. I've got the cycle down. He said, the problem is the swim. He said, I'm training with the Royal Marines, swimming every Sunday in Plymouth docks.
Yep.
Which doesn't sound like where I'd want to spend Sunday.
Coming out covered in oil.
And he said, there's a certain point when you swim in the channel that you can't see Dover and you can't see Calais yet. And because of the swell.
Yes.
And he said, and you know that you could be swimming as hard as you possibly can and be going backwards.
Yeah.
You've got your pilot boat next to you, with all of your coaches, and you know that they're going to be a bunch of liars. Because they're going to go, hey, Andy, you're doing great. They're not going to go, man, hey, Andy, mate, you're going backwards.
They'll just be saying you're doing great for a very long time.
And he said, at that point, I just come out of the zone.
Yeah.
So I taught him Hakalau, and also taught him using another NLP technique called anchoring, which is where you link a particular stimulus to a particular state. So obviously it had to be something that he could fire off when he was swimming.
Yes.
So I actually taught him so he could swim, and if he came out of the zone, fired it off by doing this.
Right.
He wrote a book. It's called Doing Big and Scary, which actually he mentions me in the forward of the book. That particular technique made all of the difference.
Yeah.
The difference that makes the difference. So you got two very able, two very capable, skilled people that when their state went, everything went out the window.
Yeah.
If we're looking at speakers, and I've heard so many speakers say this, professional speakers, they've prepared for their presentation, they've done everything, and then when they walk out in front of the audience, they get what they call brain freeze.
Yes. The whole rabbit in the headlight things where everything, yeah.
Which is essentially when your temporal lobes shut down. It's an instinct from tens of thousands of years ago, in that if you are under threat from a saber-toothed tiger, you don't want to go, should I run away or not?
Yes.
Because it's too late at that point.
The people who did think that are no longer around today.
Yeah. And obviously, it would be very rare these days to walk out on stage and there to be a saber-toothed tiger in the audience.
That almost never happens.
But the state is still the same, and it's just like, boom, everything goes. So Hakalau is the solution for that. And so we can do it right now, okay? So what I want you to do, right where you're sitting, is to find a spot on the wall that you can look at comfortably. It might even be the little camera on your phone or your computer or your laptop, your tablet, whatever it is, but a spot that you can look at. And what you do is you focus in on the spot, and then, still looking at the spot, you put your attention and your awareness in the periphery. So see if you can expand your awareness to 180 degrees around you. So you can see what's on your left, you can see what's on your right, but also vertically. Still look at the spot, see the ceiling, and you can see the floor. Now, also, important thing here is to relax your jaw. So these muscles here are soft. At first, you might actually have to do that with your mouth hanging open. Like you're watching an episode of Coronation Street or EastEnders here in the UK, which I don't know if everybody is in the UK, but there are two longest running soap operas in the UK, and you do literally go, yeah, because what will happen when you relax your jaw, that enables you to go into peripheral vision, and what will happen is your internal dialogue will go silent. Then a little trick, I'm not suggesting you'll be able to see behind you, but what I want you to do is to put your awareness so it's 360 degrees. Two corners of the room in front of you, two corners of the room behind you. And I noticed this, I was working with one of my other clients around this, and when we did, here's the trick for this. What you do is you look at the spot and you imagine a tennis ball floating above and behind the back of your head. And when you get it, it feels like somebody is like literally flattening your forehead. Everything goes quiet inside. and you're in parasympathetic nervous arousal, and you're now relaxed. Now, when would you want to do this? All the time, 24 hours a day. Even take this state into sleep with you.
There's two things that kind of like spring to my mind about this. The first one of which is, again, as you've just seen, it is a very, very easy technique. It's very powerful. I occasionally do stuff on stage, like in amateur dramatics. And I remember we were about to go on stage and with these guys, because of course the thing with like a lot of folks who do the amateur stuff is they are lovely folks. They're not necessarily used to doing it. With sometimes you'll have somebody who's doing it for the first time, and they're bricking it. But when you teach them this, then you can literally see the change in them because they've got their words down. And again, this goes back to the whole point which we're talking about here, which is you can be somebody who knows all the words. You can be somebody who can play the guitar. You've got your presentation down. If your state isn't right, then you just can't get that message across. You're stopping yourself from doing what you need to do. The other thing about it is that you may well, if you're a driver, you may well already know this state.
Yeah.
Because I had somebody who was a very, very nervous driver, and they're constantly, and if you watch the rides, they're constantly doing this and doing that, and got white knuckles on the steering wheel, and you teach them Hakalau, and not only do they become a more relaxed driver, they become a better driver.
Yeah.
Because the obviously you've got the Hawaiians, the Native American Indians also had something like this, and they called it seeing the edges of your eyes, which I really liked, and so. And the thing about it is that when you do that, these days, if you drive, or if I'm driving a lot of the time, I'm just like that. And the reason being is because I'm not staring at number plates or other bits and pieces, but just by doing that, suddenly I'm aware of that car there, that car there, that car there, that car, and you can actually witness all of this stuff, and it means that you're then able to see things which, oh, hang on, those two things are on a collision course, and you suddenly start to look at them. But if your eyes were doing that, you wouldn't be able to take it in.
Right.
So not only does it allow you to become calm, it also allows you to calmly monitor everything that is going on at once without breaking a sweat.
Well, actually, on one training I was teaching this, I had somebody from the Metropolitan Police who'd done the rapid pursuit driving course.
Yes.
And they said, we were taught this, but we weren't taught how it worked or why it worked. He said, what we're taught to do is imagine the car is in a box, and you put your awareness in the two front corners of the box and the two rear corners of the box.
Sounds familiar.
And he said, then, as long as you can keep the box empty of the vehicles, then you can drive fast and safe.
Yeah, it's like the pilots you got. They always tell them you've got a light on one wing and a light on the other wing. As long as you stay between those lights, you're fine.
Yep. Yeah. So that's Hakalau. That's how you maintain your state as a speaker, as an athlete, as a performer.
Yeah.
Or just in life in general.
And so that is the perfect foundation for the second part of Presenting Magically Express, which we'll be coming into in the next episode, which is now that you are able to broadcast, what is it that you're going to say? How are you going to formulate it? So we're going to look at I believe it's the format content structure, which again is something that you can learn quite quickly. And then, because I did Presenting Magically with you, and I loved it because it's once you've done it a few times, it's like you've got a preset template in your head, which means somebody could say, okay, could you stand up and talk about this? And you could.
Yep.
And of course, using Hakalau, you can also do it beautifully. Yep. So join us for the next episode for Presenting Magically Express 2, and we will see you next time. In the meantime, if you have any questions, it's podcast@theresultshow.com. See you then.